one. Yeah. So 10 Apple products you probably never knew existed. You might have done, but I think there's a few in there that you might not have seen. And I'm going from like surprisingly odd towards possibly you didn't know about. So the first one is the beautiful Apple Network Server 700. Oh, wow. This is a beauty. September 1996, 200 megahertz PowerPC 604E processor, single core, wow. A max of a gigabyte of RAM. I don't even. Oh look, anyway, there we go. I don't even know how much. I don't know how much it was. It would have been expensive. But here's the thing: didn't run Mac OS. First thing that ever released, it didn't run Mac OS. It runs this bizarre IBM Unix thing using CDE as the UI and. That thing, and it was probably going to transfer to what was it? That Common Hardware Reference Platform, Chirps thing. Yeah. Yeah. Weird. That is a floppy drive. Yep. And that's underneath it is 7 hot swappable SCSI drives. When the phrase hot swappable and SCSI were not necessarily things found in the same sentence very often. Yeah, it was on casters. You could wheel it around, and it had a key, like a proper server, and a little just SATA split in the front LCD display. Anyway, yeah, never had one. One of the few things never had because I didn't want to get like hernia carrying it. Next is a personal favorite, the Macintosh portrait display. Nice. On top of what I think is a Macintosh 2X. Anyone got a guess as to why they made this? Yeah, exactly, yeah, because it was all from desktop publishing. You know, Quark, and before InDesign, it was all Quark Express and things like that. Adobe PageMaker, that stuff. Oldest Illustrator before it's Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. Yeah, it was all page stuff. So they made this page display. I have only ever seen one in the wild, and it was in the window of a closed shop in a gallery arcade in Paris. And I went back the next day to see if they're open, and they were never open. So I never got a chance to see if they wanted to sell it or take it back on the plane, which would have been even harder. But I kind of want one. Like if I see one, that's one of those impulse eBay buys. March 1989, 15-inch CRT screen, grayscale only, 640 by 870 resolution. Beautiful. Since you're all keyboard fans, the Apple adjustable keyboard, which wasn't terribly ergonomic and was kind of a bit weird. That was from 93. Who knows, man? Something weird in Japanese, probably, because it was made in Japan. That much I do remember. But it's $219, connected via the Apple desktop bus, which connected to nothing else except the Macintosh, so it was unusable on anything else, like the mouse. Came with an optional keypad, which also had the nice wrist support, but wasn't included in $219. That was like $100 or something like that. So that was a fun one for you. QuickTake 100, Stroke 150, aka the Luke's binoculars from Star Wars. First consumer digital camera, May 95, $700. 1 mega flash memory, unexpandable, consistent at the very least. TIFF, BMP, and JPEG format images. Yeah, you could take a TIFF, and then you would connect it using Serial to connect it to your computer, and come back the next day and there's your image. 640 by 480 pixel resolution, beautiful. I did have one of those. It was terrible. The Apple Power CD, right? Now, note one of the very interesting things about the Apple Power CD. It doesn't have any speakers. So to buy it, you bought it, and then you had to go and buy either theirs or someone's speakers to plug in, or headphones, or plug it into your stereo or something. But you know, because it obviously fits in a hi-fi system like that. You can tell by the shape opens at the front, has a track thing on it. Its functions include playing CDs. That's about it. It had a SCSI connection on the back, so you could connect it to your Mac and use it as a data CD drive, not just as a like Redbook format audio drive. But it was a bit odd, and a bit of an outlier. This is when they released everything that they thought of, like this. So this is the interactive TV box. This actually, and I'm spoiling the surprise, but this never got released. It was trialled in the EU and the US in 1994. BT trialled it, a few other people. So it was like your TV service would come in via coax cables, just like primitive TiVo. It was based on the Quadra 605, one of the worst Macintoshes ever made. Horrendous. Had kind of basic DVR functionality, as much as you could fit on a 40 gig SCSI hard drive. Satellite cable and trusty SCART connections. And as I say, never released, right? Never made it into the wild. So I've never actually seen what the UI is, because I don't think anybody could ever make it work, because the trial's over and halfway. PowerBook Duo. A beautiful thing. This is a Duo 2300C, the PowerPC version. I had one of these, and it was probably my favorite notebook they ever made. Had some weird things. So there's, at the front there, that's a battery. This was, I think, the first machine they did with a trackpad, because they were all trackballs on the non-PowerPC versions. Nice color screen, it was fun. It had no floppy, no CD. Had a modem connection on the back and a serial port. Cleverly, so at the back there were 2 feet that folded down so you could stand it up, and that was the access point for the modem and the serial port. So like many, there's just like until the 12-inch PowerBook, this was the smallest and lightest machine they ever did as well. That's small and light, not in the phrase that we know it now, but more in like that thing. But the interesting thing so there was a dock, like a little dock thing that you could plug it into and plug your screen and all those things in. Not terribly revolutionary, because IBM were doing that already. But this was August 95. This is 100 megahertz PowerPC. Smallest PowerBook ever. Sub notebook with dock. However, it had another dock. Does anybody know about this? Don't spoil the surprise. I have one of these as well as Epic. It had this dock, which it went into like a video cassette. And then the dock had another hard drive and a floppy and loads of ports at the back, including Ethernet. That nice eject button on the front. There's David Bowie. Look how impressed he is with the PowerBook Duo. So it became a desktop machine. Now, the other thing is that there were expansion slots in the dock. They were for a system called NuBus, which was Apple's kind of PCI equivalent. And you could put another graphics card in, so you could get much better graphics when it was in the dock than when it was in the thing. Which is quite a good idea, right? It's not a terrible idea. It's a beautiful machine. Ridiculously expensive, but still pretty cool, and not a thing that that many people know about. Anyway, trivia. We'll come back to that. The 20th anniversary Macintosh. I have one of these as well. Not at full price. June 97, yeah, $10,000 for what was basically a PowerBook 5300 in a desktop case. But there were some reasons why. One, that it came with white glove delivery and install, so a nice man with white gloves on brought it to your house in a box and unpacked it and set it all up, and didn't connect you to the internet because there wasn't one. Oh, right, yeah, but who the fuck else was? And it didn't have a modem anyway, so what were you doing? 250 megahertz PowerPC 603E processor. Those big rectangles on either side of the display are the Bose sound system. And to the right, I don't know if you can just see, it's a little bit dark on the screens, but this thing is the subwoofer that sat on the floor with a massive cable that went from the back of it into the thing, or it shielded power and signal. It was pretty loud. It had some other things. It had a TV tuner, so you could plug cable or ordinary, what we called television then, but there's now Freeview, into it. And this was one of many Macs actually that made a guest appearance on Seinfeld. So that's a close-up of Jerry with the 20th anniversary Mac on his desk. Beautiful. And then that's the keyboard, which was on like a cable and had leather arm pad, wrist pads, and a detachable trackpad, and like was moved away. It was really pretty, really nice for 10 grand. But no, I think I bought it for a bit cheap and sold it for more, but it was boxed. You sold it for a car? No, just for I sold it for more money. Did you get the man with the white gloves? I didn't, no, because he's dead now. But it came with a leather-bound CD book and a pen, and like, yeah, it was like, oh, you people were on mescaline or something when you dreamed this up. It's insane. Was this pre-Steve Jobs coming back? Pretty much, yeah. This came out the year just before he came back. So this is the sort of shit that caused him to walk around Cupertino going, nope, nope, nope. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And just because Seinfeld's on there, that's Jerry with the PowerBook Duo as well, which also featured, yeah, slide in, docked is what we used to like to say. So yeah, I love those two. Right, beautiful. I got mine from like a computer stand on Tottenham Court Road, and they'd all come from Mercury, who were one-to-one, who became, I think maybe someone else, Mobile. One-to-one became who? Did they get a Cellnet? And then Cellnet became Vodafone, and then yeah, I knew. Yeah, I can't remember. I think maybe they become T-Mobile actually in the end. I think I went that way. So yeah, which is kind of cool. Right, number 9. There's only 2 more. The Newton message pad. A maligned piece of technology, yet beautiful. Yes, this is the message pad 130, I think, which has had backlight. August 93, it first came out, 336 by 240 display, 20 megahertz ARM processor. This is when they had a big stake in ARM, obviously. 4 meg of ROM, serial and infrared ports, handwriting recognition, asterisk, because it wasn't very good at first. And a lot of people made fun out of it, which is sad because it got better later, considerably better in later models. And has anybody used Inkwell on Mac OS 10? Or Mac OS, as we call it these days? Yeah, there's a handwriting recognition in Mac OS called Inkwell. It's exactly the same code from that. You just ported the handwriting code into Mac OS and it became Inkwell. It's pretty cool. There were loads of them. They made a whole different range. And they kind of culminated with 2, which was on the left-hand side, you've got the message pad 2100, which is kind of when they spun it out to a separate company called Newton Technology, which is why it's branded that, although it still has the Apple badge on, but the Apple badge is in a little circle, so they could take it out and put the Newton one in later. And it was there for all of like 6 months, and then Steve Jobs brought it back in-house and took it around the back with a shotgun. And come for a walk. And like, no, quite literally, someone I know who was in a house share years and years ago was part of the team who worked at Apple, who came from Next with Steve Jobs. And he walked past the ground floor of Infinite Loop one day, and there's all the Newton team. And he walked past the next day, and it's empty, and everything's in dumpsters. It was like it was overnight gone. The whole thing. So wow, yeah. And then so there's a 2100 up in my drawer if you want to see one running. It's crazy. And then the eMate is the other one. This is the laptop kind of version. So that had the same touchscreen as that, but on its side, backlit with a pen, capacitive stylus, PCMCIA card slot on the side, which does support Wi-Fi, a keypad which has all the keyboard functions and shortcuts that the Mac had, and connected to things, and was aimed at the education market. It had the kind of, it's I think 25 megahertz processor in that. The 2100 was 246 megahertz. It was like, boom. But yeah, a really interesting piece of hardware. It's one of the first things they released that had the transparent like plastic casing. Kind of hard to find at the time, but yeah, really beautiful. Nice. Okay, last one. If anyone's seen this before or heard of it, then I congratulate you because it's kind of a rarity. But it's the Pippin. Yes. Right? They made a games console in March 96. Or it came out in March 96, mostly in Japan, which is completely unsurprising. The date's interesting because it was concurrent with the PlayStation, when the PlayStation was launched, and actually kicked PlayStation's arse in terms of processor speed and performance, with both of the games that it had ready for it. I lie, that was a bit of a mean one because they did do quite a lot. Many Gundam Wing titles came out on this. It had a 33.6 modem, which the PlayStation didn't have for a long time. It's like a built-down derivative of System 7.5.2 that ran on. So every CD came with basically the OS on it, and then the game ran in the OS layer, and it ran all off the CD. So there was no resident OS in the machine. CD-based games, licensed by Bandai. They're the guys who made it. That's why it's not Apple logo. Still a bunch of them on eBay. The dark one is the developer kit version, I think, because it's on top of a little stand, and that stand has a floppy disk in the side for developers. Had an optional LCD screen keyboard, which we have a picture of. So that's the white shipping version. It got branded AppMark later on. And then this is the like connected CD screen pen keyboard thing that yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like there are no new ideas. So that's like a beautiful rarity and just an indication of the level of kind of internal madness that they were coming to in the mid to late 90s. Before Steve came back and killed everything and said, just make nice computers, do one thing, do it properly. Killed the printers, killed the scanners, killed the digital cameras, killed all of that, most of the screens. But yeah, so that's kind of the I don't know, is that the peak or the zenith or the nadir of their product. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think it's kind of glorious, and I love the old stuff. But anyway, so that's all the old products you probably never heard of. There's probably a load more, but anyway.